Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This is a panel about the gaming industry, per se. It's called What's Next in the Game. We're very lucky to have a very esteemed and varied panel from the industry. On my furthest left is Andy Kleinman, who's the Chief Business Officer at Scopely, and he's flown all the way from Los Angeles to be here, so thank you for coming. And Yann Fourneau in the middle, who's the Vice President of Europe, Middle East, and Africa at Gameloft, a video game publisher. And next to me here is Nicholas Aqqad, who's the Arabic Community Manager at Sony Computer Entertainment. Thank you for being here, guys.
Okay.
So perhaps we're asking why we're doing video games in a media summit. Well, perhaps it's worth thinking about what the video game industry has done over the last few decades, growing in exponential ways, and very much showing us some of the lessons that we need to know in the wider media industry, particularly with regards to audience engagement and monetizing the experience of playing video games and being in that industry. So perhaps we can get some of those lessons today from our panel. But I hope they can also introduce a little bit of what they do to show you how really accomplished these guys are. So Andy, since you flew the furthest, you start first. You tell us a little bit about your experience with Scopely, and particularly you're looking at this market for the first time. So why is that the case now?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've been in the gaming industry for several years. I started a company called Voz2 that became a pretty large social games company out of South America. I was at Playdom, which got acquired by Disney. And then at Zynga, I was GM of International, so I was focused on the company's international expansion. And Scopely, it's a new company. We're growing really fast, but we're about 100 people now, and we're focusing on mobile free-to-play games. And as we look at how the market's evolved from my beginnings in social gaming and gaming in general to now, everybody has a mobile device in their hand or a tablet, and they engage with all kinds of content all over the world. And gaming is a gateway for a lot of those things. I think that people interact with each other through games, people interact with things that they're interested in through games, and they interact with brands and with products that they're interested in getting through games as well. So for us, a big part of our business in Scopely is around brands. We actually generate half of our revenue coming from advertising, and the other half comes from people spending money in our games. So it's a very unusual balance. Most game developers generate most of their revenue from people paying. So as we expand globally, and we look at different markets, and we look at the smartphone penetration in each market, we look at what the relation is from people interested in spending money, interested in playing games, interested in interacting with brands through their mobile devices. So for me, this is my first time in the Middle East, and it's really interesting for me also as a learning experience to see how people use their games, how people use their devices, what brands are looking for. So yeah, excited to be here.
Thank you. And Yann, Gameloft is almost what you could call a straightforward game publisher, as close as you can get these days. But you've seen quite an evolution in the industry, and very much many things have changed.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm quite a dinosaur in this mobile gaming, because I'm in Gameloft for almost 10 years, and we've seen the evolution from the feature phone to the smartphone, from the premium to the free-to-play. So we've seen a lot of evolution, a lot of these different business models coming, dying, some of them, new coming, and sending the trends. And we are at the moment that we are becoming more and more closer to media, because we have now almost, in the case of Gameloft, is around 20 million people playing daily our games. That means we have a huge amount of people using our games. And since the new model now are more in free-to-play, as Andy said, we have to look for the best ways to monetize. It's exactly, I think, the same situation that media can have now in internet or in mobile space. So we have plenty of common point with the media, and we are almost a media. So we have the same needs. We are looking at new ways of advertising. We have some advantage against other media to bring to brands some interesting way of advertising. So it's really something that to explain why we are here is because we can help both us media and our brands with our experience and what we are doing right now.
Thank you. And Nicholas, Sony, the big name, the dinosaur in the room, maybe. What's the experience been, of particularly the Arabic gaming community?
Well, to explain a little bit more about my job is basically to engage and interact with the local community. I act as a point of contact between Sony PlayStation, the company, and all of our gamers and users in the Arab world. Part of my job is the localization of a lot of what we do, but I think the biggest focus that we've had over the past easily 4 years has been a lot more engagement with our gamers, the embedding their feedback into our strategy, and I think that's what we're going to be talking about here in the sense of where do other brands fit in with that, how can the media capitalize on that. It's a completely changing field, it's evolving in very dynamic ways, mobile and social media as well. I know that most people look at us as PlayStation as the console, but there's so much more going on right now and in the near future.
Thank you very much. We were supposed to have an entrepreneur's point of view as well. Sidar Sahin was going to join us, the CEO of Peak Games, but sadly he fell ill. But we'll try and keep working and give you the full gamut of the video game industry at the moment. Do you want to start talking about sort of social gaming and social media and how that's changed things and maybe some of the lessons we can learn about engaging with audiences? We were talking a little bit about that before we started. Maybe Yann, you can start us off with your perspective.
Oh, it's interesting because for us it was quite a new thing because as I told you, for Gameloft we've been doing games for quite a few years, but we are used to make games that you download, you play, and you finish. There was absolutely no interaction, and more in the mobile sphere. About 4 years ago, there was not even multiplayer. It was very limited on multiplayer, so it was and the booming of social gaming changed a lot, and we have to change a lot of things inside the organization to fit to this new model, to learn first what was the community, to be able to interact. But I told you, the great thing, as we spoke about with Nicholas, the great thing of having a community is not only creating a community and pushing a lot of info to the community. The interesting thing is receive information from them. So being trustable first, and then being able to understand the needs, to be close to the consumer. So it's something which sometimes in the social media conference we heard about a lot of information in creating a community, in sending a lot of information to the community, but there's also a big interest in receiving information. And learning this helps you to make better games, to understand where something is failing, because of course, and social game is online. It's a huge product in terms of online. There's a lot of several things that you have to fine-tune to have a working system. So you have to be very, very close to the end user to be sure that you are satisfying what their needs and everything is working together. It's very interesting to be able to listen and to the consumers, to give them what they want, because it's really a close interaction between them and us.
Nicholas, do you agree in terms of engaging with the end user? Has it helped you understand what they want?
Well, it started off obviously with social media. So it started with them talking about you online. So they're saying stuff about you, the positive and negative, and you need to start realizing that you have to answer back. So that's the first step for it. The second step is you need to understand that, yes, there's some of it that you have to take on board in terms of feedback, and you need to feed back into an organization. You'll appreciate Sony PlayStation is a huge organization, and going through every department telling them, by the way, they're talking about the payment methods and how they'd like new ones. They're talking about characters in the game and how they'd like them to change. I think Walt Disney were talking about storytelling yesterday, and there are many stories in the region that could be easily turned into games. They've communicated with us that, previously we're looking at so much more activity in games. Today they're talking about a lot of emotion in games as well. So they're getting attached. So yeah, I mean, in terms of even building the platform of how to communicate, something I mentioned to you earlier was when we first started our first step in the Arabization, if we can call it that, our localization was translating the forums as a means of communication. Social media is already translated, obviously Twitter and Facebook, but we needed another platform that is our own, an official platform. And when coming to translate that, I thought, why not go to Twitter? So I just started tweeting, guys, we're starting a forum in Arabic. Can you help me translate part of it? And they were like, sure. And I think we grew very substantially, very quickly on Twitter in terms of our following because of it. So everything from translating avatar to signature, to headshot in terms of gaming terminology, and the users started engaging with us, and that built a huge amount of following, but also I think a connection with the brand. A lot of them started seeing Sony in a different light. With this distant Japanese company is all of a sudden right there in front of us telling us, how would you like to communicate with us? When it came to games, they started asking us, could you tell this gaming studio that we want these changes done? They started suggesting a lot of new things. One of them was suggesting the Arabization of one of our characters, the Sackboy, which we introduced over Eid al-Adha as an Arabic Sackboy, so the first official Arabic or localized character for the Arab world. It's changed a lot of how we operate, even in terms of games collection on our PlayStation Plus subscription. It's changed how we view and how we look at our users and gamers, and it's changed how we approach them, how we approach a lot of the projects. It's no longer just create something and push it through social media to the users. It's about what would you like, and then throughout the building the process, is this how you wanted it? Is this how you imagined it to be? You'd be very surprised at how engaged a lot of these users are. You think the younger generations are tech savvy. They're not just tech savvy. They actually do want to contribute. It's not just, I'd like to tell you. In fact, I'll draw it for you and send it to you as well. And in fact, can I actually create it and I upload it directly? So we've got a very wide spectrum of what we call engagement. It starts with a little bit of mention and it goes all the way to creating the game.
Yeah, I agree with you. Because what we learn in Gameloft in terms of thanks to the social media is that the behavior of the user, because since before in the beginning of the mobile gaming, we don't know what's happening with the user. We download the games and we forgot it, or we lost them. But now with social media, they are connected. They are playing, so we know what they prefer. We know what they're playing. And what we learn is they're different in different regions. So we cannot treat the consumers in the same way in Middle East and in Argentina, for example. So that's lead us to first have different communities. We have different communities one in Arabic for the Middle East, and of course one in Spanish for Argentina, one in the US. So we treat differently the communities. I'm based now in Dubai, part of that, because we learned that we need to cover different regions differently, and that's we think we learn it with the social media games, because we learn more about our user, because they are constantly connected. We know that we've seen that they're consuming different, they're playing different, so we need to cover different needs from a different perspective.
Andy, you've been involved with social gaming since day one, right? I mean, Facebook games, all the big games. I mean, what's been your experience?
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing about when we think about Facebook or mobile, I mean, Facebook, it's a platform for people to connect with each other, and mobile phones are phones. People want to talk to each other, and that's sort of like the basic function of the phone. But then when you add new interactive ways for people to connect with each other and also do it while enjoying entertainment or content, that's very powerful, because you may not get a chance to talk to a friend or a family member every day, but if you're playing some quick game with them back and forth, it's a way to stay connected with them. If you get invited to do something and it's a game and you get invited by a friend, it's much more powerful than if you're seeing an ad. So for a lot of different reasons, engaging and connecting with the people you care about through these games makes a lot of sense. And we see it a lot with most of our games that we've launched at Scopely are turn-based multiplayer games. So you play with somebody. You can also play by yourself in most of these games, but it's better if you're playing with a friend. And people love that interaction. People love the idea that they're playing a turn with somebody, they're chatting while they're doing it, they can send each other gifts. The whole interactive process, just by playing the game, it's important. And then the other element is it's what Nicholas was saying about the community, which is like being able to get direct feedback from what people are thinking about the game, and actually be able to use that to improve the gaming experience and to improve future products that you're going to launch. That's something that we didn't have before in almost any industry, and the internet gives us that feedback and gives us that information. And it's almost as you're getting user-generated content and then you implement it by professionals into making a product. So I think people were talking about social media as it was something that was going to go away, and as it was different from console or from other ways of media. or gaming, but it's not. It's really the same. It's just an evolution of how products are consumed, which is everything now from television to games to everything. It's consumed with others and interacting with others and sharing with others.
So the key to engagement is helping people to interact with other members of the community, and games is a good way to do this, or you need to develop the right games to do that. I mean, what lessons can the wider media industry learn from this? I mean, how do you get people to interact?
Well, I'll start with that one. The other guys will be talking about how social media is their platform for obviously their game. Whereas for us, no, you play on the console, but we use social media to spread the word about what you're doing. So with the new consoles, you'll see people playing games and then snipping certain video feeds and uploading it onto YouTube. You'll see a lot of people sharing images halfway through a game. They'll be able to tag their friends in it as well. We're going to see a whole nother level of interactivity as well in terms of the mobile usage. I'll stick to social media now and then we'll move to mobile in a minute, but with social media, we use it as a publishing platform, obviously, and for users to use it as a publishing platform, I think all of the brands should be using it, without a doubt. I think the way that we use social media is maturing. We used to think it's just for friends and chat. Now it's brands are using it for advertising. Now we're using it for engagement, and the next level will be, like I said, going into a much deeper level of engagement, whether they want to start contributing to what's actually being done and what's being served to them.
And I mean, if we can talk about mobile, because I think it's difficult to break them up. I mean, now most people are using social media and surfing the web on their mobiles at least 99% of their day, even if they're using other platforms. So how disruptive was mobile to what you guys were all doing? I mean, could you see this coming? And what's next? I mean, I'm assuming things are just going to keep changing.
I think it's pretty huge because it's the largest consumer entertainment product ever made. When you think about one of the most successful gaming products in the world, which is PlayStation 3, how many PlayStations are out there? Maybe 200 million, something like that. I mean, that's a probably generous number, 150 million.
I knew they'd attack
when you think about smartphones, there's already 1 billion smartphones out there, and there's going to be 2 billion smartphones in the next couple of years. So you're talking about a huge platform in terms of reach that all kinds of audiences are using. And not only that, but they interact with their phones 100 times a day. They make calls, they browse content, they talk to people, they have applications. So it gives you access to huge possibilities in terms of social media, in terms of gaming, in terms of presenting your brand in front of consumers. I think it's something that we've never seen before. And when you're thinking about mobile, what's interesting too is I've been at companies. A good example is Zynga, where you're very successful in a platform, and then mobile comes along, and you need to scramble around to transition into the platform, and it's really hard. It's really hard to transition from platform to platform. It's really hard to understand that the same products that work on the web or work on other platforms are not the same ones that are going to work on mobile. So it's been a really interesting learning experience to see how people interact with their devices, how people interact with each other through their phones, how people interact with content. A lot of companies think that it's easy, that they have a website and they're just going to build an app. It's really not as easy as that. And yeah, I mean, you can build an app. It's not hard to build an app, but to build an app that has high level of engagement and retaining users and be able to grow virally and really succeed long-term, monetize those users, that's really hard. And that's why there's over 1 million apps on the App Store, and not all of them, there's a handful that make money, and that handful of companies that make money have been very defined and sort of stay there for a long time, because not everybody can break in and do it.
Yeah, I think that's the big disruption of the mobile introduces make mobile massive. I mean, it's not more a niche market. That's probably most people here think that it's an 18, 25 boy which is playing a console at home, and that's not anymore that. I mean, half of the gamers in mobile are women. More than half is, there's a lot of kids playing. I mean, everybody is playing, and I'm pretty sure if you raise your hand, somebody has played a game in the last 10 days, even any kind of games. And that's something that we didn't have before the console. And when we have only the console, so it creates new companies, creates new business. It probably helps also the consoles, as I told to Nicola, because when you discover the gaming with your phone, you can maybe want to go to the console because you want bigger screen for depending on which games. But there's really the disruption made by the mobile was that everybody knows the mobile and everybody plays. So that means it's a huge media because with a game you can reach anybody. That's a point that is not so clear for a lot of people yet. So a lot of agency, a lot of brand doesn't understand that. But it's clear that it's in a game you can touch anybody more or less because you'll be surprised that, for example, racing games. In our racing games, half of the players are women, for example. And so it's really that's everybody having fun is really something that's inherent to anybody. So it's very easy to think about that. So that's the first point. And the second point, once you have understand that as an agency or as a brand or as a media, the second thing is us and this sell to be successful in the mobile is not so easy, and because I heard about a lot of people that want to create an app or create a game with a brand, for example. So we have a lot of demand on that big brands come and say, make me a game with my brand. And it's not so easy because making a game from scratch takes time. It's not like a banner. I mean, it's really more difficult. So and the integration of the brand inside the game, it's much more useful to use a well-known game. The India ones or ours, we expect 2 hours to be as good at that, and that helps a lot for a band to be visible. Because being visible now, it's 1 million apps in iTunes or in Play Store, it's even more. It's very difficult and it's very expensive. So that's what a way of being successful in advertising brands in the mobile environment is using games. For several enough, we're going to discuss about that, but. The engagement is different in a game than in press or in the web, because when you see the brand, you're more when you're playing, you're concentrated on what you're doing. You cannot you can see the TV and play a game, but you cannot play a game and see the TV, for example.
Okay. And what does Sony have to say to all that?
No pressure. Let's start with making the conversation a bit more serious. When it comes to choosing which platform or which platform users are using, it would be ridiculous to assume. Ask your users. We have more than enough communication channels to start talking about that. And they will tell you exactly how and where they'd like to use and consume your service or your application. They'll tell you that we'd prefer an application. No, we prefer just have an app on the Facebook platform or on the mobile platform. So these different platforms have certain qualities that differentiate them. There's a reason why they all exist together now. And when it came to mobile, yes, it changed the game hugely in the sense that they couldn't carry our console around with them and the TV on their back to play it. So we had to find out, okay, how would you like to use it? And the gamers spoke to us. They said, we'd like to interact with our friends. We'd like to know what they're using, what are they doing right now. So with the PlayStation 4, a lot of you will see a web application, a mobile application that will allow them to view what their friends are playing. They can actually go into the game. We imagine a lot of games creating their own applications that will allow interactivity. So you could be playing a car game on the console in your house, whereas your friend could join in the game on a simpler version of the game on a tablet. We envision some other level of interactivity that is not necessarily gameplay, where let's say you're driving around a racetrack or a city on the console in your house, and your friends can upload images onto the billboards inside the game. So imagine getting your Facebook feed inside a game that you're playing. So rather than looking at your phone, what's going on with my friends whilst playing a game, you're actually, no, inside the game, you've got your Facebook. I think GTA 5 has introduced the concept of an in-game Twitter and an in-game social media. So social media inside the game, just to complicate things. When it came to creating your own application versus a Facebook application, you need to think about mobile there, because that's where it's going to be the differentiator. On a PC, you've got a large screen. You can do a lot with the Facebook platform, whereas on a phone, it doesn't make any sense to log into Facebook and then log into a game on the Facebook application. So it's an application on the application on your mobile. So you better start off with the user experience and build it from there. Assuming anything in this kind of conditions, let's say, in this kind of market, it's too risky. It's almost suicide to say that, no, this is what's going to work. Users, they know they have power. They know they have a very loud voice. and it would be disastrous, and there's no need for it. You can build so much more positive engagement and share of heart by asking them and build a relationship with them rather than try and, if you will, shove a product down their mouth.
And if mobile is here to stay, and it's the big thing, and if social gaming is here to stay, how do you make money out of it? You know, I mean, isn't that the big question? Is it, you know, for Sony, is it just an extra revenue stream, or is it a new way of looking at your business model?
No, it's broadened who we can work with. If you can imagine, one of the models that we use is, let's say, add-ons to the game. So you buy the game, and then you can buy costumes for your characters as an add-on onto the game. So you can imagine a lot of clothing brands will be interested in that. It's already been introduced into PlayStation Home, where you can get, if you will, all your favorite clothing brands and dress your character in them. We can see a lot of virtual achievement turning into real-life rewards. So we can ask you to come play a certain game online or in a tournament, and if you win it, you get a voucher code that you can use on any online store and monetize that. So it's helping you, obviously, with your promotions. There's huge other opportunities as well. As long as there's engagement with the consumer, there's an opportunity. But I would only note that it's not any game that will work for your brand. You need to find the game that is relating to your brand and your brand values. You can see, obviously, I think Walt Disney does this incredibly, not just because, obviously, they were speaking yesterday, but if you look at their games and how it feeds into their other business models, it's an incredible collaboration. It's an incredible interconnected system.
And Yann, you were smiling while he was saying, because you agree with him, or because
you
you
can
disagree?
always say Blu-ray DVDs. That's the ultimate for Sony. No, yeah, I agree with you in general in terms of monetization. The problem is with the gaming, I mean, there's no special recipe, because when you launch a game, and every game is different, and the way of monetizing it is different. It takes a lot of analysis, and if you find a game who is monetizing very well, I don't know, doing this kind of costume, or maybe the other one, it's another type of game, it doesn't work. We have to fine-tune all the time how we can monetize this game. We cannot apply a recipe that we can have before, when we just make download and that's all, and paying for download. So it's really a challenge how to monetize well every game. And regarding the brands, is Mr. Zapatero from Google this morning said that he was dreaming the day that advertising will be inside content. That's already in the gaming. That's what we're doing. We are already. There's another way we can monetize is, for example, in our case, we can make a part. The brand can be part of the game. I told you, we can have an Audi car in our gaming. We can have a very inserted in the game. So that means you are not forced to see the advertising. You need the advertising to play. I mean, if you want to be faster, you need to have the Mercedes or the Audi car instead of the unbranded car. It's the kind of thing that, and so psychologically, from the user, it's always easier to buy something because you want it, or see something because you want to see it, instead of being forced to see it. So that's a way that in gaming we manage to have this kind of engagement with the brands we can advertise, because we have a lot of opportunity to create what fits with the brand inside any game, and that's really make the player playing with the brand with that feeling. It's much more than a product placement we can see on movies, that you put a Coke bottle and you see the people speaking with behind the Coke bottle, because we can do much more with that. We can do a moving bottle of Coca-Cola if you want, which can be more funny. I mean, there are a lot of things we can do with the gaming that give a lot of opportunities to create a nice advertising and a good, because this morning we were discussing about good advertising or bad advertising. So we have a lot of challenge to make a good advertising and to insert the content advertising to make it fluent, because of course it's not a way to put a lot of banners inside the game. There's a lot of game, by the way, and in the shops that are free and full of advertising, but at the end they don't monetize, because people, as you asked this morning about being flowed by advertising, if you put millions of advertising in a free game, at the end nobody plays, because you cannot stand it. It's annoying. So it's really a mix. You have to do it, and the more you integrate it in the game, you're more fun you do it, because at the end we're making games. So if that's funny, there's nobody plays.
Andy, do you see it that way as well?
Yeah, I agree with everything said so far. I think so. There's sort of two ways of looking at this, right? There's the point of view from the people who are making these games, and how do they see the business evolving, and then the point of view from the brand's point of view or the consumer point of view. And from the game's point of view, it's part of that evolution that we're talking about, right? Like the traditional idea of games was that you would went to the store and you bought the game and you paid, you know, $50, $60 cost in the US. You buy the game, you go home, you play, and that's it. You spend your money, right? And as this experience is more connected, like Nicholas said, you start adding different elements of things you can buy or things you can do beyond buying the game. When you look at mobile or when you look at social, it feels like everybody can put out an app. So charging for that app, it's starting to get really hard because there's so many apps out there. It's so competitive that people want to give them out for free. So you have all these apps that are free, and people have to download them and engage with them. And so once you have people downloading the app, even if you have a successful app, how do you make money, right? So there's a small amount of people that will spend money in the game. And for companies like Supercell, that you know, under 10% of people who are spending money, it's equivalent of like $1 billion a year. So that's not a bad business to be in. But the majority of developers are not making as much money with their people that are paid. So they need to find ways to monetize the rest of the audience. And the 90 to 95% of people who are not spending money, how do you monetize them? And it's through brands. And there are ways of including those brands in the games as part of the gaming experience, instead of just saying, okay, we're going to put banners everywhere and like ruin the gaming experience for the consumer. Now, from the brand's point of view, when you think about advertising on mobile, or you think about ways to get to the consumer, you know, you have very limited options. When you think about, okay, you know, you go to Google, you do AdWords. I mean, that could be very successful, but it's sort of limited on the, you know, how creative you can get in terms of what you can do with it. When you think about even going to Facebook or Twitter, the platform is pretty structured, so there's not a ton of creative stuff that you can do to show your product or to really engage with an audience in a unique way. So when you go to games, suddenly there's a lot more possibilities because and this is not every game company, but there are several game companies that are looking at each product and they find really exciting new ways of integrating brands as part of that product experience. And when you can do that, like Nicolas said, like buying a you know, clothing for your character or any sort of interaction that puts some effort from the part of the person that's playing, that's amazing because you, as a brand, already won by getting the person's mind share and getting them to interact with your brand without them having to click or go to a website or buy something. And usually those things are going to have much better conversion funnel down the line. So I think that it's a pretty exciting opportunity when you think about game companies getting, you know, millions and millions of users that you can interact with. Mobile gives you the ability to know so much about those users. You know, a lot of these guys are either Facebook connected or they include other information, so you know a lot about them. You know where they are with geolocation. You know who they're playing with. You know who their friends are, and you know what type of game they're playing. So that tells you a lot about the kind of person that you're targeting. So all those things open up the space for a huge new opportunity for brands that are not really taking advantage of that as of now.
We've got a few more minutes left, so I'll open the room up for questions. There are microphones, if you just wait for them to come. Here at the front, but if we have a mic.
My name is Jihad Sadiq. I will give an example from my own experience. I remember when I was 10, I got a PlayStation. And the first thing I did after playing the first game, I went down to the supermarket and I got a shooting gun and I started shooting my friends. It's a toy at school. So I was influenced by the violence of the game. I have a question. I mean, how do you think PlayStation or Sony do take the social responsibility of the, like when people are influenced by the games you present?
Well, there's the positive and the negative way, obviously. Well, I'll start with the commercial one just because I wanted to clarify something. We talked about people's clothing and brands' clothing inside gaming. When you look at where you want to place your brand inside a game, think of where they actually use your product in real life and then look at the game that's relating to it. We already have brands in games. Every car game has every car brand, obviously. So they've already been there for ages. You can see any sports or football game around the pitch. There's all kinds of advertising that's similar to real life. So that's something to think about. In terms of how, we take our social responsibility very seriously. We have huge moderation teams that obviously look after the content that's being uploaded. When it comes to my job as community manager, I'm the first point of contact for any complaints, whether it's a YouTube video that somebody doesn't like, that they find offensive, in any way or form. We are an international company. There are some local issues that are sensitive. Yes, there are banned games, and we respect the banning of them very well. We don't try to work around them. We find this is something that you're not happy with. We do not publish it in your area or on your store. But also in how people are using it as well. Yes, I do many times go onto Twitter and ask users to obviously behave well, obviously, when interacting with other players online. You're talking about some games that have up to 500,000 players online at the same time. So that's a huge amount of the world playing with each other. And although we try to make it region-specific as much as possible, you will end up having a Saudi playing with a Japanese person, playing with an American, with a Spanish person, all in the same room. And there is tension because it's competition, yeah? So it's my job actually with other community managers to make sure that we create a safe gaming environment. In terms of influencing what they buy or what they want to do, their games do two things. It obviously imitates life, and then it creates imagination. So some games are there to broaden your perspective, to make you do things that you can't do in real life, whether it's fly, become a superhero, build imaginary worlds, conquer other planets. And there's other games that obviously are like simulators where you can race in 100 different cars if you can't afford them. So there's both spectrums, but we take it very seriously. The part of the community manager's job, it's not just pushing social media. It's listening and taking on that responsibility. Okay, what are we going to do about it? How does this affect how people view our brand? It is like a brand ambassador, a local brand ambassador to every community.
Any more questions? At the back. Wait for the microphone, sorry, right at the back.
Hi, Abir Abishmais. My question is about the trend in this industry. So a lot of people are saying that gaming is going towards like trivia games. It's all about like throwing as many games as possible and see what works and what doesn't work. And hardcore gamers are upset. And there are a few companies like Blizzards that are around the world now. And I wanted to know, being in that industry, where do you think it's going in terms of, is it about high quality games, hardcore gaming, or is it about what works? Thanks.
Well, I can.
I think that it's probably the most exciting time ever in the industry because hardcore gamers still get games like Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. Like those games are still being made and they're huge. They're bigger than ever. And then there's new forms of games like that, like League of Legends, or even Clash of Clans can be considered a much more immersive experience than other games. At the same time, you have companies that are developing much more casual type games that are geared for other types of audiences that maybe never really played games before, and now they're for the first time interacting and playing these games. So I think that adding diversity and adding more types of games is a great thing. I think a lot of these games, when there's a difference between making different game genres and making different game qualities, and if the game is a simple game, but it's really well made and it's polished and it runs well and it's fun, it doesn't matter if it's a much more simple game than Call of Duty. It still can be successful. It can still be popular, and it's a good thing that it exists because it engages a different type of user. And then the companies that are making, there's definitely a lot of companies that are making games that are not very good and not very good quality, and they're not targeting the long-term user that really wants to engage with something for a long period of time, and those companies are just not going to be around for a long time. So I think that there's a balance, but the main sort of answer is that the market is just much more bigger than it was before.
I have to give you the last word, Andy, because we have to wrap up. We're out of time. I know some of you have more questions. I suggest you harass them after the session. But thank you very much, Andy, Yann, and Nicholas, for joining us today. It's been a very eye-opening and interesting session. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.